Welcome back to Unboxing OD. I'm your host, Kenneth Pearson, and I'm so glad that you're here. Each episode, we explore the human-centered heart of organizational development, what it looks like in action, what it feels like in motion, and how we navigate the spaces between challenge and change. And today's episode is one that I've been especially looking forward to. I'm joined by a guest whose journey into OD is both relatable and inspiring, especially for anyone who's ever wondered how learning and development intersects with the broader systems work of organizational development. Bethany Rios brings a thoughtful perspective to this conversation, one rooted in experience, growth, and a deep belief in the power of learning as transformation. Whether you're new to this field or have been walking in it for a while, I think you'll find something meaningful in what she shares. Before we dive in, let me take a moment to introduce her properly. Bethany is a dedicated learning and development professional with a proven track record of delivering transformative training programs. With 8 years of experience in the field, Bethany has honed her expertise in designing and implementing innovative learning strategies that foster continuous growth and maximize employee performance. Throughout her career, Bethany has collaborated with diverse teams across industries such as healthcare and hospitality, tailoring learning initiatives to address specific organizational needs and drive meaningful change. Skilled in instructional design, e-learning platforms, and interactive methodologies, Bethany creates engaging, results-driven programs that consistently exceed performance targets. Believing that knowledge is the key to transformation, Bethany continues to empower leaders and teams to excel in an ever-evolving professional world. So, welcome, Bethany. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And so I want to just say that I had the pleasure of meeting you at the 2024 Nahara conference, and I think it was Durant, right? And was it October or was September of 2024?
September.
September. I keep on thinking it was in October, but okay. So in September of 2024. So I've been really curious about your journey ever since then. So I know we've gotten to interact professionally on like LinkedIn. This is I think our first actual meeting though. So really excited about that. So I'm going to get right into the questions here for you. So you've spent years growing and growing in the learning and development world. What first sparked your interest in organizational development? And was there a moment when you felt the pull to go deeper into the system side of growth?
Yeah, I think for me, I like you said, I spent a lot of years in learning development. I love it. I think it was like a natural transition into OD. I do think that when I first entered, I didn't really know what to expect. I'm still definitely learning that, but I feel like even in my approach with learning and development courses or programs, it has always been in that wider mindset, thinking about the organization as a whole, um, being partnered with different parts of our organization to help with structures or processes. So I feel like it's a little natural, but also definitely still learning.
Yeah, I mean, that's for me too. I mean, I'm always in learning space and finding different methods and different ways to go up different programs, etc. So I love that I love that about you. There's the curiosity. And you had that. I remember when I first met you, you had that just like that curiosity. You were just like I saw you at the conference in the different rooms, and you were just like fully present, fully aligned, fully like just asking questions. And that's one thing I really appreciate about you is that curiosity, how it comes across. It's not just you saying like I'm curious or whatever. It actually comes across to people who are observing. So yeah. So that transition from L&D into OD can sometimes feel like learning a new language even though the roots are connected. What's been surprising about stepping into this space for you? And then what challenges have stood out along the way?
Yeah, I think definitely learning a new language, teaching that language sometimes to my leadership as well.
Yeah.
I think for me, I even now I still kind of sometimes find myself been sitting in this seat for about a year and a half now. and kind of making that transition. But I still have those questions like, am I supposed to be a part of this conversation? Should I be in this conversation? Like really kind of trying to balance what I'm supposed to be involved in, what I'm not supposed to, and kind of shifting my mind, I would say, is definitely like that bigger piece. Like where my job sometimes would have stopped with L&D, it's like, no, being in this seat, I have to continue going, right? Expand a little bit more. And so, yeah, definitely been in that kind of learning space of what conversations I should be a part of and which ones I shouldn't be. I think those are some of the questions that I had for you guys, who sit and have the experience like you do. When we were at Nahara, I was like, is this the right mindset to have? So definitely learning that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that, with organizational development, the professionals or whatever, we are actually surprisingly, we're supposed to be in everything, even though we're not supposed to be in everything, but we are supposed to be in everything because it's a system. I mean, and organizational development is a system, or the organization is a system, and organizational development can help guide that system in whatever capacity that we can do. And we tend to, I mean, I know that, I mean, we'll talk about it here in just a moment, but we tend to, when I first went into organizational development, the mindset was, okay, so you'll just provide training. It's like, okay, yeah, great. But training is only about like 10% of what we actually do.
Mhm.
There's so much behind the scenes stuff between processes and procedures and strategic planning and all that kind of stuff that goes in there. So we really are that profession that just has their hands in everything, but nobody knows what they do.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yes, that's true.
yeah, I like being behind the scenes, but it's kind of hard to, to justify why I exist until I don't exist there anymore. And they're like, wait a second, what happened?
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of transitioning into that is, you've lived in both worlds now. So from your perspective, where do L&D and OD start to diverge? And where do you see them naturally supporting each other? So where do they kind of separate a little bit, and where do they just naturally support each other?
Yeah, I think for learning and development, it's very focused on the individual learner. That is, who our whole, end user is when we're designing training, developing training, all of those kind of things. And it's skills based, right? How do I prepare you for success in the positions that you're going into? And then with organizational development, it's more of like whole like all around, I would say. When I think about leadership development, excuse me, the purpose for that is to prepare our next leaders that are going to be taking over the organization, right? In that succession planning. And so I think for me, I would see those as the biggest differences. Like I said, it's kind of taking that learning experience a little bit further, and thinking about, the rest of the story, I would say. Um, where they support each other, though, I think, when we're thinking about big picture in OD and helping with the processes that support the vision of our organizations, I think L&D comes in as a partner to help us support, and get those trainings that are needed, get us in that learning mindset, I would say, that learning culture for the organization. So I definitely think that they're very supportive of each other.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do too. And I know that there's always some disparity or just confusion between, what is L&D, what is talent development, what is, organizational development, and people kind of tend to kind of like use them interchangeably.
Mhm.
And that's not what they
Yes.
that's not what they are. They are all separate fields within, and I look at organizational development. Learning and development is super important. I think it's really, really, valuable within organizations. But I think organizational development really is the forefront of all of those fields,
Mhm.
because it integrates all of those fields into one field itself. So yeah. So you also mentioned, we've talked a little bit. So you've mentioned how important leadership buy-in is. So what have you noticed works best when trying to help leaders see the bigger picture of OD, especially when it's not as immediately measurable as a training session.
Yes, I laugh because when I first started, it's like, oh, we gave her a fancy title or organizational development manager, but really understanding what that is and, learning from you guys, like I said, at Nahara, kind of getting your insight there in this role, being able to bring that back. And, a big thing for me is being a resource to the operation that I work in. And so for me, getting their buy-in is helping them think in that systems mindset. It's not, necessarily the top skill for everybody all the time. So having someone who, like, that's our role, is speaking to them, talking it out with them, getting them involved from the beginning, is always important. And then being transparent. So if we're talking about a project, it's a transparent step by step, conversation that we have. Here's what I've been thinking. Have you thought about this? Let's kind of start from ground zero. I think like that's always important for the leader. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and I know leadership buy-in can always be a little tricky. Um, so I'll just do a little quick follow-up question for you. Now that, we talk a little bit about titles and stuff, and I know that you have, the organizational development manager title as a manager. Now, how do you approach working with individuals that might be considered at an upper level? So let's say a director level or even above, like a C-suite type level. How do you approach those types of conversations in terms of looking for, getting leadership buy-in?
Yeah, for me, I always view all leaders in, a different kind of space, even if they're in the C-suite or as a director level. I talk to you like I'm talking right now, right? I think having that ability to do that. And when I come into an organization, I always spend time with those leaders at the beginning. What are you hoping to see in your departments? What is your vision there so I can help you along the way? And so that's kind of how I try to communicate with them, is having that build a relationship at the beginning, on a professional level. And then when we have some big changes, because there's always change, I'm a partner for them, right? And so for me, like, their buy-in is being very transparent. I have a lot of FaceTime, I would say, with my general manager. And so getting him in the process, like, I know that that's what he needs. He needs to know every step that's coming through, right? And he is a fantastic leader, so it's great to have that relationship because there's that buy-in with him, right? And so that's definitely, like, for me, I think I would just say having that established relationship at the beginning helps as we continue on through the months with these changes.
Wonderful. And with having those conversations with the upper level leadership, I know that they can be a little tricky. It can be a little overwhelming at times. And exactly what you're talking about, just stepping in and having conversations, letting them know where the expertise lies, letting them guide the conversation. As organizational development professionals, we have our practitioners, we have knowledge that we can provide. We don't have to force it on anybody, but we're there to help guide, solutions. And that's when we put ourselves as the subject matter expert, it makes it easier to have those conversations with the C-suite and directors. And,
Sure.
it's great. So we talked a little bit about the difference between being seen as a trainer and being recognized as a true partner. So what does partnership look like to you in your current role? And how do you build those kinds of relationships? Kind of playing a little bit more off of the leadership by it.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, and I'm gonna go back to maybe a little bit of the differences between the two. And L&D, even though it shouldn't be this way, as we've evolved, it's, hey, I need this training, right? So I'm providing that service for you. Versus being a partner is we're really in there from the ground up. It's, we have this new project coming. Let's pull in this team because that's where they're gonna help us out in structuring this to set up everybody else for success, to make sure this is a win, right? And so for me, I would say that a true partner is someone that, they invite in from the beginning. And I know that that was, like that was a stretch goal for me this year. Is I really want the departments in the operation to see us as a partner, and bring us in. Like we're here to help you guys as we're going through a lot of change, because there's a lot of change happening right now. And so that's for me, is like I trust you enough to say, you know what, we have this big project coming in. Let me bring Bethany in and her team so that they can help us get this across the finish line.
It's great. And I really appreciate the fact that you made it a goal this year, to become more, position yourself as more of that, subject matter expert, position yourself more as a partner. And it's a lot of it is about relationship building, and it's about building trust. It's about having the little conversations here and there. It's not just walking in the room and saying, "Oh, I'm an OD manager. This is what I do. Let's move forward." It actually aligns perfectly with the whole idea of this podcast was to remind people that organizational development is human centered. It's just, organizations should be human centered anyway, but organizational development, the best OD practitioners are human centered practitioners, OD practitioners. And, like I said, just the fact that you just said, I made it a goal this year. You made it a goal, and that's very commendable. So, thank you. I appreciate that. And I know we were talking a little bit, before about Nahara. You are going to be speaking at Nahara this year. So excited to see you there. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
So what will you be sharing with that audience, and what does it mean to you, especially as someone still finding your voice in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I am honored to be able to speak at Nahara. This is definitely that first time for me branching out outside of any organization that I'm in. So I'm very excited about that. I am talking about leading through change. When I went to Nahara last year, it's not just because I'm in hospitality, right? I'm in gaming. So it's not just the gaming industry, it's tribal government, it's healthcare. So I was thinking, what topic could span across all these different industries? And I was like, well, change, because change happens all the time. And so my approach in this topic is more on the leadership side. So how do you help others embrace the changes that you're proposing, right? We have to advocate for those change and buy into them in order for our team members to follow us there. So that's my topic. I'm excited about it. I know everyone likes to say that they love change, but I think we're all a little bit creatures of habit. So I'm really excited for this one. It should be fun.
Yeah, yeah, and that's great. And for, I'm just going to let people know that, for those who don't know what NAHARA is, it's the National Native American Human Resources Association. And if you'd like to register for their conference, it's going to be held. Is it September 29th through October 2nd?
October 1st.
October 1st. So it's September 29th through October 1st in at the Pachanga Resort and Casino in Temecula, California. Great organization. I've been, a member, and been a part of it now for, part of, not part of Nahara, but going to the Nahara conference. This will be the second time I go as well. So if any of our listeners out there want a conference to go to, this is absolutely a conference to go to. It is a great, a great celebration of all human resources professionals within, the Native American, and indigenous space here. So, absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, it's a national conference. So that's why I'm saying, Bethany, I'm saying congratulations to you, because it's a national conference. It's really something great to put on your, put on your resume there. So yeah, so let's kind of transition a little bit. So let's get honest for a second. What's one thing you wish someone had told you before stepping into OD?
Yeah, I think, for me, it would probably be really highlighting those true differences between L&D and OD. Um, I'm very comfortable in the L&D space because that's most of my career has been in that. But I think really highlighting the differences between the two so I could maybe have transitioned that hat that I was wearing a little bit faster. And having someone like to ask those questions too. And I'll go back to the conference last year. I asked a lot of you guys for that insight as I was transitioning. And so when I gave my report on the conference to my organization, and the biggest things I would say, that was the biggest thing, is learning that there is a difference between the two, right? Being in this seat is a lot different than the seats that I've been in before. And then they're both super exciting, and they're both, like you said, human centered. But just, having that wider, I would say, focus and a wider vision, would have been very helpful at the beginning. But yeah, I would say I would have loved to have that more of an insight, into that before stepping into the role.
Yeah, I understand you completely because I didn't have that either. So
Yeah.
when I stepped into the OD role, I had a training background. So I had a training background, I had a teaching background. And it took me a long time to really and a lot of independent study. So I did a lot of independent study to learn about organizational development, to what goes in there. And we're fortunate, organizational development professionals. We actually have a resource. We have ATD, Association for Talent and Development, which focuses on organizational development. And I know that they actually have a book. I don't remember the name of it, but they have a book called it's like the foundations of organizational development. So, starting there and then kind of growing out of that, growing with that a little bit and doing that independent research really helped me out. I know that. But yeah, so I completely understand where you're coming from, and not and just kind of stepping into the role and being, just saying, all right, well, this is totally different than what I anticipated it to be. This is not training, is it?
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, completely different. So, so let's say for folks that are out there thinking about making a similar leap. So let's say from L&D, from HR, or even operations, what would you want them to know before they dive in?
I think, your approach about doing that self-learning and going to go find out the information, I think that's big. Um, if you're wanting to make the change, I'm like, do it. Why not try it? We have a huge impact on the organization and on the people. And that's always rewarding when you see the success, right? When you see people grow it and the organization thrive, that's our money right there, right? And so I would say, do your discovery, ask the questions, find your contacts. I think that's always helpful to have people, because sometimes when we sit in this role, there's not really maybe someone above that's like that director or that vice president and that sits in the seat. So find your mentor, find people that you can have as a resource as you're growing and developing, and then be open to learn, right? Be open to those feedback, that change. Our job is to get people to be open to that. So we have to, be that kind of example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like the finding a mentor. I mean, I was fortunate enough that my supervisor, she was at the time, she was the deputy director for human resources, but she had an organizational development background. So she was a great mentor to me. But I know that there's so many OD professionals or OD practitioners that are out there, that you don't have to have them within your organization. There's actually just a community of OD professionals that are willing to share, even if it's just a single question, they're willing to share that information to you. And it really is. So OD is really a kind of a unique community. And I found even with the IOP, like IO psychologists too, like it's just a unique community. Just everybody just wants to help everybody else. It might not be the way in any other, like this just might have been my experience for both of them. So, might not be like that in any other field. But this is, OD is a special field, because and it's a very close knit community because we all understand that not a lot of people are going to understand it. And, when we have conversations about, organizational development practices or technologies or whatever the case might be. When we talk to another OD professional, they just say, okay, I get this. When we talk to somebody else, they say, well, can you explain what that is? Can you explain what this is? It's like, all right, okay. So, yeah, so, we've got a couple more questions here for you. Super excited about these two because these are our final closer questions here. So as you keep growing into this work, how are you starting to define success for yourself? Not just by outcomes, but by how you show up, how you lead, and how you're evolving. So how do you kind of define that success for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's that mindset. I had a example maybe a week or so ago, and I'm like, okay, well, have this deliverable, and I'm like, that's where my job starts. And then it's like, nope, or stops, and that's not where it stops. You have to continue, right? Because that's the different seats that we sit in. And so I think for me, it's continuing to be open to that feedback, but also to say, okay, keep going, right? Like that's for me. So that's how I'm showing up in work is where do you need from us? How can we help you in this transition? We have a lot of, like I said, we have a lot of change coming. And so being prepared for that, for our team, I think is important. And so for me, I think is just continuing to be available, I would say. Um, Sometimes we can get stuck in the small details and the day-to-day things, but being open and saying, yes, I'm here to assist you. Yes, we can work through this. Like all of that things, I think for me is successful. I think at the end of the year, saying that I've grown into a partner with the operation, like that would be huge success for me.
And I love that you can measure your success. It's not, I mean, of course, we're always going to have our KPIs and, our deliverables and
Mhm.
stuff, but, we have, personally, I know that we all have our own, as professional, OD professionals, we all have our own goals and our own definitions of what our success looks like. So, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And lastly here, you ready for this one? Okay.
Yes.
So, and one of our favorite closers, if you had to describe your OD journey right now in a phrase, sentence, or even a little haiku, which I'm not going to dive into, why I ask about a haiku, um, but if you had to describe your OD journey right now, what would it sound like today?
Great question. I would say it is like forever learning. That's what I would say. Forever learning in this space, for sure.
Forever learning. I love it. Curiosity. I'm a curious person, so I love when people are just curious about everything. I
Yep.
love it. So, well, thank you for being here with me, Bethany. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate this conversation. Um, and to everybody out there, thank you for joining us for this episode of Unboxing OD. That's it for today's conversation, and I hope you find it as meaningful as I did. These conversations where we get to slow down, reflect, and hear how others are living this work are what Unboxing OD was always meant to be. A big thank you to you, Bethany Rios, for joining us today and for sharing her story with such honesty and heart. If you'd like to connect with Bethany, I will include her contact information in the show notes. So certainly they can connect with you on LinkedIn, correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect. I will have your LinkedIn contact in the in the show notes there. And to you, the listener, thank you. This podcast continues to grow because of your curiosity, your trust, and your willingness to explore what OD really looks like beneath the surface. If you're interested in the framework that guides much of my own work, my book, The Flow of Five Tiers, is available wherever books are sold. It's a way to think about alignment from purpose to outcomes and how real change happens across those five key layers. And if your organization is looking for OD support, we'd love to connect. At Pearson and Pearson, we offer thoughtful, story-driven, project-based consulting that meets people where they are and helps them move forward with clarity and care. One last note, if you've been listening and thinking, I've got something to say here, I'd love to hear from you. We're welcoming guests to future episodes, and if you have a story, a practice, or a perspective to share, reach out to me at info@pearsonpearson.llc or message me on LinkedIn. That information is also available in the show notes. Until next time, keep learning, keep reflecting, and keep unboxing what's possible in your workplace. Take care.